Welcome to tonight's edition of the Klown Podcast. I'm Scott Burks. Please check me out on my website, www.theclowntimes.net. You see it right here. So it's Clown spelled with K. And you'll be find me on Facebook as well. So whether your laptop, desktop, mainframe, wherever you are, where it may be. So just type in the Klown Times and the search window. You'll be able to find me there as well. Also, please check out the merch, speaking of the hat, not the Kente cloth, at cafepress.com. Search the Klown Times Sports. I'm getting all militant, like people wondering if I get all militant. And you'll find me there as well. You got to find the products. They got hats, sweatshirts, t-shirts, mouse pads, you name it, it's all there. Links are underneath this video on YouTube. And last but not least, speaking of which, please continue to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Even if you do not agree with anything what I or my co-host or my guests would say throughout the podcast, we'll go back and forth with you. It's all good. Either way, you'll be glad you did, and I'll be glad you did. So, speaking of HBCU sports, your boy's back. My boy's back. Y'all know him from the Yard / HBCU Sports, rest about all things HBCU Sports, as well as Sleazy Ritter every Tuesday night on Facebook Live and YouTube. And last but not least, check out his great work on herosports.com, where he talks about all things FCS athletics as they pertain to HBCUs. Dwayne Nash is back in the house. How you doing, my friend? Oh, and happy New Year too, by the way.
Yes, Merry New Year. I am finally back on the East Coast. I had an issue where I left my wallet in El Segundo.
There you go.
And I had to get it. Had to get it.
Wow. There you go. There you go. So, right quick, Southern California. It's cracked up. What is all? Is it all cracked up with it, what their semen is, or?
I will say this. It's extremely beautiful.
Yeah.
But Tony lied to us, or as many of my friends have said, that they probably just did not anticipate global warming. But the last few days that I was there in Southern California, it did rain just about every day.
Nice. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
But you're back on the East Coast.
Yes.
Glad to have you back. So there we go. All right, man. So as people know, we didn't have a podcast last week because it's Christmas break. You know, I tend to take the last week off of the year anyway, to bring in the new year, decompress, and all that good stuff. So we pretty much miss out on Ed Reed being hired at Bethune Cookman. Basically, he was formerly at his job with the Miami Hurricanes, his alma mater. He spent the last 3 years in the administrative role. First under Manny Diaz, and then this past year as a senior advisor under Mario Cristobal. So basically, Reed will replace Terry Sims at Bethune, who was fired after going 38 and 39 in 7 seasons. And people don't realize that Bethune was a powerhouse.
Yeah.
They were legit powerhouse, because you think about it, look where they're located. And that part of Florida, all those recruits, right?
Mm-hmm.
So basically, Bethune took advantage of that and was really willing to react for a while. But at any rate, the school made the move after firing Sims through Wildcats athletic director Reggie Theus. And for those of you, of you out there who are younger than we are, you don't realize that he was a one-time NBA player. He was a damn good player too. He was a star in the NBA. But anyway, he said he was looking to hire someone who could, quote, ensure that we not only build a championship culture on the field, but also aspire to academic excellence and career achievement off the field. All right. So basically, people are comparing this obviously to what happened with Jackson State when they brought in Deion Sanders, right? You know, as far as like bringing the spotlight to it, like to the program, not only to the program itself, but HBCUs as a whole. Let's just be real, especially the SWAC. We all know that Sanders went 27-6 in 3 seasons before taking over at Colorado. This is one thing, man, and you can give me 2 cents after I finish blowing it. But it's one thing I hope that people do not really do is hold Ed Reed to an unfairly high standard because of what Coach Prime did at Jackson State. The things, first of all, the things he would have to do, he being Reed, would be to hire a damn good coaching staff like Coach Prime did at Jackson State. I mean, Gary's like Zimmer to run the defense, who was not only a great defensive coordinator in the NFL, but he was a head coach.
Yeah.
And you had Dennis Thurman,
Uh-huh.
yeah, like doing the defense stuff as well. I
Yeah,
think
Dennis
both,
Thurman was the D coordinator there at Jackson. Yeah.
yeah. So he bought both Zimmer and Thurman, I think, with them due to Colorado. So the thing is that Prime, like Coach Prime, the understand what he was able to do was to bring in a damn good coaching staff. A lot of former NFLers, a lot of former NFL coaches, and you see the results.
Yeah.
You saw the results. So that's what I think Ed Reed needed to do. But also, what people do understand is Bethune Cookman, in addition to being smaller in size than Jackson State, it's private. So they don't have much of NIL like Jackson State did.
Yeah.
So it's a different set of circumstances and challenges that was presented to Ed Reed. But as long as Reggie Theus and company, and I hope Reggie Theus understands this as a former pro athlete himself, and that transition from pro sports to the collegiate side is to understand where Bethune currently is in terms of NIL. They have to set up their own NIL. They have to set up the NIL infrastructure wherever, however they choose to do it. But they got to understand that you got to give allow Ed Reed to get the tools to succeed like Coach Prime did at Jackson State and having this coaching staff. So all that being said, how do you think, first of all, how do you rate the hire? Or how do you rate the hire, number one? And two, what is a fair benchmark for success for Ed Reed at Bethune-Cookman?
Wow. I'm a little leery as it pertains to ranking initial hires before they get to the field. And the reason why I say that is, we're all speculatory at this moment. We don't know exactly what recruiting is going to be like because we've never seen it done before.
Right.
The things though that we do know is that he has been a part of a coaching staff for the past few years down at the University of Miami. Right. Even though that program hasn't been what we've known it to be, men of our age most definitely have seen what that program has once been.
Yes. Y'all need to Google. Please Google Bethune in the 90s and whatever before that.
Well, not just Bethune, but also the University of Miami.
That's true too.
The Hurricanes aren't currently what they once were, right. But they do have the name and the blue blood, recency blue blood in terms of collegiate football, with the hopes of turning that program around. And he's also been a member of one of those great teams there at Coral Gables. So with being on great teams on the collegiate level, on the pro level, being a Hall of Famer himself, he's been around talented programs. Hopefully, he has an understanding of what it's going to be like to build one there at Daytona Beach. But the one question I wish I would have had an opportunity to ask Coach Sanders during his final Celebration Bowl interview, a press conference, was if you had an opportunity to speak to any of your fellow pro NFL football players that were looking to come coach at an HBCU, what type of advice or information would you give them? My thought is that Ed has probably already talked to Dion about what it's like coaching. Too.
A lot of people talk to Dion, period, but especially DB,
exactly right.
DB. Yeah.
Yeah. And then two guys who have been former teammates. They're in Baltimore. So you have that. You have Ed coming to, who of course is like I said before, an alum of the University of Miami, not an HBCU alum, no HBCU ties that I immediately know of. Right. But looking to get information on what it's like to not only coach at an HBCU, but to coach in the SWAC. Right. And what he's going to need in order to build that program and get it back to not just the prominence, that it had with Coach Wyatt and what they had with the Wyatt Bone back then in the 90s, but also in the early years of one former head coach there, Terry Sims, for whatever reason, just could not seem to get it together from making that transition over from the MEAC over to the SWAC. You talk about Sims, the coach who Ed Reed is replacing. His first season, for those that don't know, Sims came in and coached the Wildcats to a 9-2 record, which was tied for first place with several other programs there in the MEAC, with A&T eventually becoming the representative of the MEAC in the Celebration Bowl that year. Then he followed up with 3 other 7-win seasons, only to move over to the SWAC. And within his first 2 seasons there in the SWAC, will only be able to tally up a total of 4 wins. So, yeah, when I asked Coach about that, he just said he just had a difficult time trying to get his footing within the conference and trying to figure out exactly how to get his guys to perform at the level in which he would like for them to perform. And it was just unfortunate that it just wasn't long enough for an athletics director that didn't necessarily have any connection with Terry Sims, because, of course, Theus was brought in during the COVID year, which was at that point in time Sims's 5th season, I believe. There at Bethune Cookman, so he wasn't the guy to bring in Terry, and he just saw that Terry was not getting it done in the SWAC, and Reggie wanted to go ahead and bring in his own guy.
Yeah, so there you go. So how long has Reggie Theus been the AD at Bethune?
If memory serves me correctly, since 2020.
Okay, so he's, to your point, he's fairly new there as well. So
yeah, he's fairly new there at Bethune. But to your point, in terms of comparing Ed Reed to Deion Sanders, I've said this before, and I'll continue to say this again. We already know Coach Prime is a unicorn. He is a one of one.
That is correct. That is correct.
And there are a lot
People
of
don't
things
understand that.
you know what I'm saying? There are a lot of things in a lot of relationships that he has that other people just don't have. And there's a lot of cachet and attraction that Deion Sanders has that I don't know or believe that Ed Reed currently has. We don't necessarily know Ed to be, based upon what we've seen, that type of dynamic character that draws people in with his charisma. But again, he is a college Hall of Famer. Well, if he's not a college Hall of Famer, he's most definitely a collegiate great, and most definitely a pro football Hall of Famer.
That's important.
And those two things alone, especially being from the state of Florida, will most definitely be a draw for him down at Daytona Beach. And I don't necessarily expect him to do what a lot of people expected Deion to do at Jackson State. I really just expect for Ed Reed to go in and look to turn around that program down there at Bethune Cookman. That's it.
Yeah.
If he can do more, wonderful. But all I'm asking him to do is turn that program around.
Yeah, I agree with that. Now, yeah, I mean, the thing is that I personally think as long as Ed Reed brings in the staff, that's the key right there. As long as he brings in the staff, and I think he has the connections to do it, to pull it off. I think he'll be fine. But I think Reggie Theus, to your point, understands this part. They just need to get their NIL shit going. They have to get that. Let's face it. It's college free agency. I mean, NIL is brought combined the transfer portal. It's free agency. You can get good quickly, just like the NFL.
Yeah.
If you don't take advantage of that, you stay bad. Ask the Clemson Tigers. But anyway, I mean, they're not bad, but I just want to get that dick. But I'll say this, man. As long as Ed Reed does that, he'll be fine. Because as long as he can recruit, he's in Florida. He's a Florida. I mean, I know he's from Louisiana, but he spent most of his time in Florida from college on. He stayed in Florida. He knows people. I like to think that he knows people. And to have Ed Reed come on that campus, young and old know who Ed Reed is too. Then he's not Deion. No one's Deion. He's a one-on-one. We have established that. But people know who Ed Reed is too.
Yeah.
And you don't think those young kids, especially future DBs or defensive players, don't want to learn under Ed Reed?
Yeah.
Okay. But I'll say this too. This much ballyhooed blueprint that folks said that Coach Prime left. One could argue that Bethune is following set blueprint, right? With this hire. I have a feeling, especially if Ed Reed, granted, I think his success will be winning in his first season 5 to 6 games in his first season, and then improve from there. That's what I think success is. They don't have to win their division. I think they'll abolish the division next year, if I'm not mistaken, the SWAC. But if they're not the abolishing divisions, they don't even have to. He doesn't have to win this division this year, let alone win the SWAC. Yeah, as long as get him to 5 to 6 wins, show big time improvement. Then that's when kids are starting to pay attention. People start to pay attention outside the university and gives Bethune some love because that's what Prime did. He started out pretty modest. People tend to forget that in that spring season, he was pretty modest. He wasn't bad, but it was modest. But then he improved from there, and that's when people got on this train, or this gravy train. So I just think as long as Ed Reed does that, he'll be fine. But it starts with his coaching staff and recruiting. It starts with those two things. So so basically, I'll say this too. When going back to the blueprint thing, I think if Ed Reed is successful at Bethune, I think he will be. You don't think the other schools in the conference going to do the same thing?
You know what? It may become a pattern if that starts to work out, right? Because it worked out at Jackson. But they also believe that following up Deion Sanders with another NFL player was not the move. They saw that staying within the stats that they currently had, especially with a guy like TC Taylor that has roots with Jackson State, was most definitely a better move for them to continue to advance that program.
You mean Dwayne Wade? That Dwayne Wade, he looks like the Dwayne Wade, but go ahead, sorry. I saw it. The Dwayne Wade leaving the Utah Jazz to coach Jackson State. But go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh my God. You're
I'm
dumb,
sorry.
dude.
Go ahead.
That's all right though. That's all right though. So it'll be it'll be intriguing to see, because if you start talking about former NFL players with prominence, because you got to remember there are a bunch of other HBCU head coaches out there that have had NFL experience that we for whatever reason tend to forget about, especially the ones that we have little knowledge of that have had NFL experience, with the exception of Deion, Eddie George, Tyron Wheatley with him in his short stint, and then also Doug Williams with his tenures at both Grambling and Morehouse. Right. So, like I said, Rob Milstead with his time at Delaware State, Sam Washington with his time at North Carolina A&T. There are other head coaches that have NFL pedigree as well. But we've seen it both ways, where we've seen the successes of Coach Prime and the attention that he draws, and we've also seen the successes of Doug Williams and Sam Washington, and we've also seen the subpar performances from Tyrone, from Eddie, and also from Rob Milstead as well, where, depending upon what side of that you stand on, that's where you decide to make that gamble of going NFL, if that's the route or not, in terms of getting your head coach, because it's not a proven commodity within HBCU football to this moment right now, not in my eyes at least. But again, we have to wait and see what type of relationships that Ed Reed has, because I'll be intrigued to see not only the head coaches that he brings in, the recruits that he's capable of bringing in, but the biggest thing, especially for a private institution like Bethune Cookman, the type of sponsorship relationships that he's able to garner down there in Daytona as well.
All right. And before we move, we're going to just move on here to HBCU conferences. I don't know if you heard about this, man, but on HBCU game day, there's a headline that's talked about that the HBCU conferences agree to work together. basically the commissioners represent the four NCAA historically black athletic conferences. The CIAA, MEAC, the SIAC, and the SWAC have agreed to partner in more collaborative ways to strengthen the value of HBCU conferences and to protect and amplify the HBCU brand. So basically, there are differences in size and whatnot, but it's going to be interesting to see how that worked out. But before we get to what their plan is, I want to give a quick shout out to BetUs.com, my sponsor. So, listener sports bettors, your favorite sports book, BetUS.com, is back for our 28th year of NFL action. With the industry's biggest sign-up bonus up to 200%, BetUS offers our members the opportunity to cash on all your favorite sports, including NFL, UFC, and MLB. If you're looking for live and game betting, incredible odds with daily odds boosters, plus and parlays, we got them. How about fast payouts and exceptional one-on-one customer service? We got that too. So log into betus.com or call 800-792-3887. That's 800-79-BET-US. Use the promo code TKC for the Klown Times as well. BetUS.com, where the game begins. All right. So basically, just talking about like the HBCUs plan to work together, be a difference in division, size, and makeup. That the commissioners basically like acknowledging, going back to what I was mentioning before, that they are all the same in the foundation of Memphis and the mission to serve and advance students and athletes at HBCU. So I want to have people come on next week to talk about this, but I just want to throw it at you right now, just to briefly discuss it. Could this really work? Because there's different sizes. Like you talk about divisions 1 and 2, right?
Yes.
With the SWAC and the MEAC being Division 1, all be on the FCS level, then having the SIAC and the CIAA Division 2. So all that to ask, just basically, could it really work?
Wonderful question again, Scott. But, let me put this in perspective for you a little bit.
All right.
The timing of this announcement. Can you tell me what happened just a few weeks ago?
With the MEAC being victorious again in the Celebration Bowl?
Well, yeah, that's exactly what I was looking at, right? But I wasn't looking to call it out from that perspective.
Okay.
I was just going to say it was a Celebration Bowl, but to my point that I've made, several times in the past, that this game is not just for the two teams and the two participants that are there. It's most definitely become a celebration of HBCU athletics as a whole, where not only do the alums come through,
mm-hmm.
but the various commissioners, the various ADs, coaches. Dude, the amount of people that I've seen from HBCU sports that was there in Atlanta that weekend, it was a who's who. It literally was a who's who. Like I said before, from former staffers to current staffers to former coaches, current coaches, ex-players. It was a who's who, and everyone had an opportunity to come and meet together and talk about various things. And I've had those conversations too with various different entities. And my guess is that conversation started that weekend, and it came to a point where they were like, you know what, we need to go ahead and do something as a collaborative effort that would be of benefit to all four of our conferences.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that I asked, though, is what is their plan? It was a great announcement that, yes, they're coming together to talk about various issues, but they haven't stated exactly what it is that they're talking about. So we're basically looking at this thing, not even in its infancy, more so in its embryonic stage, because it's still developing and they're still trying to figure out exactly what it is that they're looking to do based upon the information that they're giving us right now. Now, maybe they do have a plan that they're looking to finalize and give out to the public, but I guess we won't find out exactly what that is until we're given that information from the respective conferences. But I'll most definitely be looking to see what those things will be in the upcoming months to see exactly what type of direction they're looking to go into, because I believe that with these conferences coming together, that they can come up with something that would be most definitely beneficial to all parties involved.
Yeah, I'm just hoping. I don't see how it could logistically work right now, given the different size of the conference and whatnot, schools involved, different levels of competition, Division I, Division II, and then NCAA. I don't know how it's going to work. I hope it does work. I hope when they come up with a good plan that could work. I hope that involves I'm just spitballing here, a linear channel or similar to the SEC network. Doesn't have to be as big, but similar to the similar to the SEC network, similar to the Big Ten network or the ACC network. Call the HBCU sports or something. I don't know. Something similar in that vein because there's appetite for it. We got the alumni basis for it. It can work. I don't know how. I'm not that smart yet, but it can work. But I'm like you. I'm waiting for it to come in more details. I mean, it's obviously in the infancy stages, but to me, if it was to be brought up right now, like recently, like a couple of weeks ago, they've been thinking about this shit for a long time.
Yeah.
It's something that you can't come up with just nearly on the spot. They've been thinking about this for a while. I would say probably the last 3 or 4 years at least, given the success Jackson State was having thanks to Coach Prime and company. I think they've been in the notoriety with game day going to Jackson, right? And everything else, and the spotlight that's put on that particular game, and the success of the Celebration Bowl the last few seasons, and having the SWAT being televised at ESPN2 the last 2 seasons.
Yeah.
They've been thinking about this for a long time, and they're just making it public. So to me, they're gonna the only thing that's left now is to dot the I. They're not to the point of dotting the I's across the T's, but they're getting to that point. They're closer to that point probably than what many people believe.
Yeah, and I will also say with the success of HBCU Go, with the relationships that they've had with not only just the SWAC, but with the CIAA as well. But there's a part of that announcement. I shouldn't say it was in its embryonic stage because in that statement they talk about what they're looking to do. It says here, and I quote: "The conference, the commissioners of the 4 power HBCU conferences will continue to meet monthly with a focused agenda to share ideas, advocate in spaces that impact our conferences and institutions, develop new opportunities, and expand current programming, and mostly to engage all 4 conference members and leadership where applicable. We're already shared in the experiences of inviting, our members to our individual events and programs to support our mental health, leadership, career development, and more." So it looks like they're looking to do more of advocacy work for the conferences to uplift the 4 conferences. I don't know if that necessarily spells out into media as of yet, but it might well could, where there could be a unified front in terms of having some sort of like you suggested, some sort of network that would help increase revenue in terms of a television deal for all 4 conferences. Right. But I know that there's a lot of advocacy work that needs to be done in terms of or collaborative efforts for these conferences to come together so they can talk to one another about what works best for their conferences and how it can benefit the others.
All right, man. So we're going to talk more about this next week, but tell the folks out there where they can find your social media.
As always, you can find me at all forms of social media at the Yard HBCU. I've been slacking in my macking over the past few weeks, soaking in that Cali life for the past few weeks. So there's a lot of backlogged social media stuff that I need to post out, especially with the HBCU basketball season well underway. Conference play, of course, has just started this month, and there's been a lot of great basketball being played so far. So you can actually, especially in the Mid-Atlantic, start seeing me at some of your favorite institutions. They're covering certain games as we get closer to conference time. But also, you can check out my past work this past football season with herosports.com as it pertains to all things that are FCS football on the HBCU level. See if I can actually start making my way to some of these XFL and USFL games this upcoming season because there's a lot of representation from HBCUs in those two spring football leagues that I'm intrigued to see exactly how they look during the spring and whether or not that means that they'll be capable of parlaying their way over to the NFL, especially with a couple of the other all-star exhibition games that are coming up with the HBCU Legacy Bowl that's coming soon. They've been listing out their list of invitees, as well as the other well-known collegiate football showcases, the recent Senior Bowl, East-West Shrine game. They've been sending out their invites to HBCU alums as well, HBCU athletes as well. So I'll be out there keeping an eye out on who will and who won't be participating in those games.
All right, man. Great. And so please check out this brother's great work. Those links will be in the description under this video on the YouTube as well. So please check his great work out again. YardHBCU.com, HeroSports.com, Sleazy Radio every Tuesday night on Facebook Live and YouTube. As for me, please continue to check out my website, which I hadn't updated in a while, so we got a slack in your mackin. www.theclowntimes.net. Also get the merch at cafepress.com, search for the Clown Time Sports. And please continue to like, comment, share, and subscribe. You'll be glad you did. I'll be glad you did. Until next week, take care. Have a good evening and a weekend. Peace out.